Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. This past weekend I was out playing a tournament in the city of Coimbra in Portugal. It's called the Queima das Fitas Open and it happens every year. It's very nice, like the whole environment and everything. Um, However, the tournament is not very strong for a player of my level. It has over like 200 people and I started 5th seed, I believe. And overall it doesn't have a lot of strong players. But yeah, it has some nice prize money, and also if you manage to, you know, to get like top 3 or something, or maybe to win the tournament, you end up also getting some elo. So that was kind of the goal. It didn't really go my way. I can show you the final player card here. Yeah, I scored 6 out of 7, which on paper is good, but if you look at my opponents, compared to my rating, of course, I played below all of the games, and most of them like really, really far below. But even with that, I was completely losing in one game. That's the main game that I want to look at today. But yeah, somehow, as you can see there by the title and everything, I remain unbeaten for more than 16 games, actually. If we count my last tournament, which was Genk, and now this one, that's 16, but even there were some league games as well here in Portugal. And also I can show you the final standings here. A friend of mine, Jose Vega, actually won the tournament. He played quite well, finished with 6.5. And yeah, you basically, because it's only 7 rounds, it's a very small event, you really have to do like 6.5 or even 7 to win the whole thing. So I don't want to look at all the games. I want to take you instead through some of the most interesting moments. Okay, in the first round, basically we got this endgame straight out of the opening. I'm black, and black is just very comfortable. I played rook g8, rook g1, rook g7, with the simple intention to double up here on g8. And my question to you is, how would you defend the position here with white? So I will double the rooks and attack the g2 pawn. And the question is just, how will you defend that? I can give you a couple of seconds. You can pause the video if you want. Okay, my opponent here basically lost the game immediately. He played f3. And it's funny, this has happened to me in some other game, actually like a similar type of endgame where I was putting pressure on the g2 pawn and he played f3. And this is just a huge mistake. Yeah, knight h5 just... this f3 move just weakens the squares too much, and so the game continued like this. And okay, I was up 2 pawns, and this endgame, of course, is completely winning. After knight h5, it's pretty much over. What he had to do is g3. And now what I was thinking about during the game is rook g8, king e2. Well, he can do it the other way around. It doesn't matter. King e2. And now I shouldn't be hasty with f4, because he can close everything down, like g4, h5, f3. And this is probably a big mistake on my part, because now, for one, the knight doesn't really get in anywhere, and on the other hand, the knight doesn't get into e4. So what I should do instead, I was thinking about some options. For example, the computer, it says like knight e4, and says that black still has a little bit of a pull. And in case white takes, then it's a big pull, actually. This could be... really bad with f5 coming, and then I'm threatening f4, and if you go king e3, I might even throw e5 in there. But I was thinking about h5, preparing h4. If he does it himself, this is probably a big mistake, because now I can do something like f4, and if need be, like king f3, I guess, and then rook g4. And I'm probably threatening knight e4 at some point, and this should be probably winning. So after h5, instead, he has to go knight f3, I thought. And then that gives me knight e4. And okay, I thought I had a little bit of a pressure here. A little bit of pressure. But it's not so simple. Like f4 is not such a big threat right now, because the rook is defended. And so the computer just suggests he should make some move like a4. Try to make some play on this side. And my pawns, my center is kind of nice, but it's not very mobile. Okay, instead he played f3, as I said, and I just won the game. Okay, the next game wasn't so interesting, the second one nor the third one. In the third one, I drew against a 2000 player. I had some chances, but overall the game was quite boring. And this was the fourth round. I was playing much below again against the 1900. But I believe this guy is rated like 2150 alive, which is kind of crazy. He gained like 100 and something points in his last tournament. Okay, I decided to play something, honestly, just whatever, just trying to get a game. I failed in doing that as well because he knew more theory than me. So okay, I just played some normal English, knight c4, and here he played this b5 move instantly. And when I say instantly, it's like the guy was blitzing out all his moves, right? And he played b5, like he was super excited first of all, like visually, and he didn't even sit at the chair before playing b5. And I mean, I briefly thought about it when I played knight c4, but it's like, yeah, whatever. If he plays, I mean, I thought that worst case scenario I played knight e3, which is what I played instantly as well, because I'm like, no, let me get out of here. Like I'm not accepting this pawn. I mean, I briefly considered this because I get a pawn and then I have queen b3. I get 2 pawns, but it's like, I don't know, whatever. He might have something, and he told me he was full of prep as well. So yeah, screw all that. Knight e3. Castles, a4. And then I was surprised to learn that up until here we're following some game from 2021 from the Meltwater chess tour, which is like this series of events that used to exist. I believe it was part of Carlsen's championship tour or whatever that existed in the pandemic. But a4, okay, just a normal move. And here I was mainly considering a6 for him. Knight d5, take, and something like maybe rook b8. Because I'm threatening to trade here, and get this bishop, which is more important than this one. So I was considering like rook b8. But the computer basically says that he's fine, and even more than fine, by playing b4 at several moments. And he did that here, which apparently is the best. And here comes a move that has been heard all around, not the world, but at least the tournament, the people in the tournament. So basically, I was kind of happy by carving out this square on d5, and I played knight b5. Now, yeah, I just wanted to trade, and then play probably like knight c4. I don't think I'm too interested in getting this bishop. I believe I'd rather keep my knight on c4. But there was a better way to do this, like much better. For example, knight d5, which is what Wesley played as well. And, if he takes, take with the bishop. And then install the knight on c4, play b3, bishop b2. Computer still gives a slight advantage to black. Because even after all that, I get some squares, but I'm down so much space that it's not really sufficient for equality. But whatever, it would be a game. Now after knight b5, however, again he started to, show his emotions and whatnot. He started like staring me at the board, and it was kind of annoying. And I'm just like, okay, dude, do what you have to do. And I quickly understood that he had knight e8 or knight e6. The idea is just that this move is ridiculous because my knight is trapped. So he just removes the knight somewhere, and I cannot get it away. Okay, I thought for a while, and I'm like, okay, I'm lost. It happens. I was starting already to do the math in my head, like, okay, I'm going to be down this much elo. I'm not going to have any chances to even get, my elo back in the tournament because I'm going to be pushed all the way to like, lower tables. But I'm just like, okay, whatever. It happens, Let's just get ready for the next event already. But then things were not so simple. So b6, bishop c6. Okay, he's just playing this in a very normal and prosaic fashion. Queen a4. Doing my best, given that I'm down a piece. Knight d6, expected. I took on c5. Knight c4, queen c4. And here he had a pretty easy solution, which was knight d4. And he told me after the game that he was afraid of afraid that I'd get too connected past pawns, but it's one of those things that's just sort of an optical illusion, let's say, because if you actually sit down at the board and think for more than 10 seconds here, you realize that the pawns aren't going anywhere. The main thing I was thinking about during the game is that I might have some chances if he keeps the knight, right? The knight is famously terrible at stopping past pawns, whereas the bishop is really good. So for example, if he had a knight here, I might have some chances, at least practically. So okay, I wasn't going for this. I was going to play probably rook a1. I don't have time to save this pawn, so I just have to pitch it. And, you know, some position like this, I thought, okay, I'm lost, of course. Big news. But I can, you know, put on some resistance for a little bit. But he played queen b7. And after rook c1, rook c8, queen d5, he started to think for a long time. And I could tell by his body language as well that, you know, he was just playing, you know, quickly, confidently. And after this move, he started to, you know, doubt himself a lot, think for a long time, and he wasn't sure what to do. And we both briefly discussed this after the game. I mean, I still thought that he was completely winning, but he had to, you know, I didn't see exactly how, like directly how. And I thought he had to find some, you know, maybe some plan that was a little bit more complicated. But as it turns out, as the computer says, this is already a draw. The position here is equal somehow, which is really remarkable because he apparently didn't do anything wrong, right? He, you know, just traded pieces. But chess is unfair like that sometimes, because what happens, it's just concrete. He basically put himself here in a bit of a pickle, and he cannot get the pieces out. For example, if knight d8, if knight d8, I cannot take on b7 because he throws in rook c1 intermediate with check, but I just take on e5, I believe. Yeah, I take on e5, and after trades, he cannot take on b6 because the bishop is hanging. And then on the next move, I guess I'm just gonna play some queen c7 or defend the pawn again, and you know, I'm already up 3 pawns for the piece. So, you know, you start to second guess yourself, and he cannot do that. After some time, he played bishop f8, and I just played rook c4 instantly. So now he doesn't even get knight d8 because I can trade the queens and take the rook. So he's just stuck forever, which is crazy. It's actually crazy. I must say I was quite lucky that the position turned out this way. But to be fair, knight d4 was also kind of findable. So okay, he started, again, spending some time waiting around because he kind of couldn't believe that he didn't have anything. And I was just blitzing out some random moves as well. Not even improving my position. I was literally just waiting. b3 because, okay, he might have some idea of going e4 perhaps. You know, I realized that he doesn't have... I mean, either he doesn't have a way. I didn't know he didn't have a way during the game, obviously. But it's also something that I tell my students. That's like, you know, if you have some sort of a fortress and your opponent... And you haven't seen how he can break it, and your opponent is not, you know, showing signs that he saw it. Even if you don't really believe in it, okay, you just have to sit tight and try. Okay, eventually after king f8, I thought I had to do something, and I played e4 and f4, because what's happening is that he wants to play king e8, and then finally give himself queen d7. But it stands to reason that even after all of that, let's say I played some random move instead of e4, let's say I just waited again. I believe I still have queen b5, and again it might be difficult for him. Yeah, it still might be difficult. He cannot move the knight. If he moves the knight anywhere that doesn't protect the rook, I'll just take it for free. The rook cannot move still, and if knight e7, I believe I'm gonna win with rook c8. Knight c8, take, and b7. But okay, I thought I had to do something. Slash, I thought... slash, I didn't know what he would do against my plan. So I just start mobilizing the central pawns. And he plays queen d7. Apparently best is fe5, or sorry, ef4, gf. But, you know, also approaching slowly approaching time trouble and everything. I didn't know. I didn't know what to think of this. I have so many pawns all of a sudden. But probably this and then queen d7 is better, but I'm not sure. He played queen d7 immediately, but this sort of blunders fe5. And now there are some tactical details. So first of all, if he takes, he loses because now he has 2 pieces hanging. If knight e5, first let's look at bishop e5. So this is simple. I take on c6, and then if he takes the rook, I'll take the bishop, and I'm just down in exchange for 3 pawns. So or 2 pawns, yeah. So but that's completely winning, because his king is too open. I have pawns. I have this passed pawn, whatever. And if he takes, if he takes here, I defend my rook, and that's over. If he takes with the knight, I'm taking on c8, going b7. He has to go queen b8, and then I'm not winning immediately because after queen b5 he has this. But I thought I was going to win with something like, okay, I don't know, probably many moves lead to Rome here, probably even just d4. And the thing, the main thing about his position is that he doesn't have any counterplay against my pawn, so I can even take my time. So he plays bishop d8 back here. He doesn't take back. At this stage, I have already 3 pawns for the piece. Soon to be 4. I just took this one. And he went back here. It's funny. This is actually almost the identical position, or maybe it is actually the identical position to a couple moves earlier, but I just took all his pawns. And so, of course, it's just completely winning here. b4 and b7 was the final move of the game. Somewhere around here as well, he offered me a draw after, like, I don't know, after f4 or something. And, I gave him a little face like, dude, I don't know. If you asked me a couple moves ago, I would have accepted immediately. But now I start to be ambitious. And we even both, like, laughed a bit at the board. Okay, so this was sort of a ridiculous game. Where I blunder a piece on move 13. But, yeah. I mean, I'm not even going to say that I put up a great defense or whatever. I just mainly got lucky with the position, because he put himself in that sort of prison, and for some reason it was hard to get out of there. Okay, the next game, surprise, surprise, I'm playing below against a 2100. Most people in Portugal have this epidemic of trying to trade all the pieces off the board when they're playing above, which is extremely annoying, but yeah, I guess it's part of the game. I try to play some, some funkier type of variation in the BOGO, but he plays a3, just trading everything off. Yeah, we get to some position where I play knight c6, and I vaguely considered his next move, which is not a good one, which is to take on c6, because it allows me to take like this and then go e5. And, I just have the superior pawn structure because the d4 square is weakened and the c6 square is never an issue, and the better bishop. Even if he goes c5, which he did, but I'm just slightly better. More interesting was knight c2. I was thinking about this during the game, knight e5, knight e3, because I'm threatening to take. And so the computer here comes up with a very nice move, which I didn't see. I didn't even consider, which is b5, which is really cool. So takes, I take the bishop, I take back, and basically just play for compensation. And it turns out that I'm probably even getting my pawn back quite soon. Or he's not castling, maybe one of the above. So if he castles now, I go bishop a6, and then a4, and rook b8, and I won't have any problems here because I'm taking my pawn back next, and my structure is superior. And if he takes with the queen, bishop a6, yeah, and he cannot castle. So this was a cool idea. Instead, I was considering this during the game, b6, bishop b7, f4. I thought this was his idea. It's not necessarily the best move. Take, and d6. I was trying to, it's this, typical structure, but not with a typical piece setup, let's say, like the knight on e3 usually isn't there. And I was trying to figure out if this was, you know, better for him, for me, whatever. Eventually I saw this idea. I mean, first of all, it's not so easy for him to make progress. He's probably going to throw g4, g5 at some point, but it's not so clear that the attack amounts to anything. He doesn't have any bishops. And eventually I also saw this idea of queen c6, which is kind of annoying for him. And I was pretty happy with this. So I was ready to go into that direction. Instead, yeah, he took like this. Now I'll move on to the more interesting part of this game, which happened somewhere around, yeah, here. So we got to this scenario where I'm not sure if he saw that I could win a pawn, but we get to this position where I'm, you know, a 4 versus 3 by force. I take this one and I take the rook, and now there are some concrete issues. Basically, the position looks like it's headed to a draw, but it's not, because if he takes with the rook, I'm taking, going queen e1. And here I cannot be greedy and take the bishop because I get mated. But I was thinking during the game that I can take on e4, first of all, and now there's no mates. And, you know, this is sort of playable for a win. And there might even be some better moves, I don't know, because he's going to have some problems with this pawn, the bishop, whatever. So he ends up taking with the bishop. But now, again, there's some concrete issues. He does this, and we get to this position. Okay. So here we just shuffle around a lot. I just build this nice little structure around my king. Go h4. And I'm trying to get, actually, the queens off at some point, because I'm not finding it easy to, you know, expand my pawns with the queens on. Not sure that is the best decision or not, but, you know, I was also in quite some time trouble, so it's just something that I decided to go with. Eventually, though, he manages to get the rooks off, which is really beneficial for him. Now my winning chances have reduced dramatically. And eventually we get to this position where I thought I have some chances, because I have, for example, right now I have a threat of queen a1. And from there, like, if king h2, obviously he drops the pawn, and if knight f1, I have knight d2, and I win. So he goes knight g4, but this is a big mistake. And I sensed during the game that this could be a mistake, but yeah, under some time pressure, my calculation here faltered. I played queen a1. Queen d1 is better for a very specific reason, but anyways, it transposes in the game to the losing line after knight e3. And now the critical move is queen e1, right? Which I saw because he doesn't have a way to defend the f2 pawn. For example, if knight g4, of course, he gets, I get to deliver this nice mate on h1. But the problem is he goes queen d5, and I'm getting f2, but he's getting e5 with check, and I can't really avoid it, right? f6 will just run into some perpetuals. So I take, he takes, I have king h7. And I even considered the position this far, because I have this double attack threat / mate with knight f3, which is, again, concretely speaking, not easy to defend. So he doesn't have any checks, and the queen somehow lacks a square in which it can defend that. But my calculation basically ended on king h1. And I thought, okay, I don't have knight f3. Knight f1 doesn't do anything. I just thought that I didn't have any useful moves with the knight. And you know, we traded a pair of pawns, which helps the defending side. And I'm like, yeah, let me get out of this. But it turns out that it is winning here. And it's not so difficult once we get this far. Queen e1, and then knight f1. And this is the key move that I missed, this knight f1. And he's pinned, right? He's pinned, so I get all his pieces and I made him. The difficult part about this is that, you know, if I don't have anything here in the end, of course, if we got this far, I would have seen it in a heartbeat. But if I didn't have anything here in the end, then we just traded a pair of pawns, which again helps him. By the way, the subtlety here with queen d1 is that in the game, the computer points out he had a chance instead of knight e3 of going g3, which anyways is like clearly not what he wanted to do, but the computer points out that this is not losing. And the subtlety with queen d1 is that in the same line after g3, I can insert this knight f3, which is quite nice. And then I win in this very geometrically pleasing way. So okay, instead of going queen e1, I went back because I couldn't find the win, and we shuffled around a bit, and the game even ended like prematurely here because I missed a very simple thing that after knight g4 I cannot defend my pawn, so I have to go f6 and accept this draw. And I was even scared to to lose here in time trouble because, for example, it's never too late to blunder something like queen e4. But okay, king f8, and we just make a draw. Very annoying game, but okay, I guess I had my chances. This next one is not so interesting, and yeah, let's get to the final game. The only game where I was playing, a player at master level, let's say 2281, a nice lad, Roman Khiabuchin. I believe he's a FIDE master, yeah. And so, okay, I decided in the last round, okay, I'm tired of playing these stupid Bogo Indians, and we just get, these dull positions. Let me go for a King's Indian, risk it for the biscuit. I love this opening. It's definitely one of my favorites, but of course it's quite risky. Mainly if you switch on the computer. If you switch it off, it's more unclear than risky, and that's fine. Okay, he plays this weird move order, which I could have exploited, but I wasn't sure whether I wanted to go for this. You can always trade, go for the endgame or something. But okay, honestly, this looks pretty, pretty good for black. But okay, I decided to transpose into this. I had a feeling this was what he was going for. This is the line that Darius Schwirtz recommends in his testable course in 1d4. It's quite venomous, but these lines where white gains a lot of space with h4 and g4 and whatnot, in my view and in my experience, are kind of overrated, because I used to think that they were sort of killing black in all these lines, like, grabbing all the space and suffocating him, but it turns out that it's not so simple to stop all of black's counterplay, and I've lost some tough games with white, so I'm no longer falling into that narrative. I played e5. More critical, or better in theoretical terms, I believe, is c5, where the game can take this path, e6, and knight f3, and we transpose actually to a very recent game of Niels Gandelius versus Carlsen from like 2 days ago or something. And here Carlsen, I don't think, went for the most computer approved way, which is b5, I think. And okay, I thought about going into this for a little bit. This leads to some crazy lines here after white goes, I believe it was e5. How did this go? Yeah, e5, de, bishop c5, rook e8, bishop b5, knight d7. And now there's these two moves, and black is always sacking one of these rooks, if not both. And okay, it's some crazy stuff. I just thought, like, okay, if he knows that, then it's pretty unpleasant. So let me go for this, which is, again, theoretically not best, but I know it's quite playable in practical terms. Here the theory suggests queen c2. And okay, the game goes on. Instead he goes bishop g5, which is an interesting idea, because what he's trying to do is play f3, but not allow me to go knight h5, right? So I go for the standard counterplay in the King's Indian with c6. Just 1 second. Just closing the door. Queen b6, queen d2. And, the main reason why I love the King's Indian is that you get this open game, open board, and you have so many, it allows for so many, like, imaginative ideas. The problem is when your opponent is really strong and he, again, just suffocates you and doesn't allow any of that crap and, really does a good job of preventing your counterplay. But even with that, like, g4 is a good move. I'm not saying he made a mistake by any means. It's the best move. But I'm saying, for example, here I was starting to consider some sacrifices related to bishop g4. For example, after bishop g4, if he had to take back, I would have done it like immediately, and I'm just completely winning. Takes, queen, I don't know, like so whatever, c1. If e3, I can throw in a check like this. Take. I got what, 3? Yeah, 3 pawns in an open board. This should be great. But of course, the problem is always that he's taking on f6, and now this is not enough. But I was considering, for example, here, queen b4, knight h3. So this is the way that he wants to develop. And now to take. This time around, he takes here. I believe he can also take on f6. Yeah, he can also do that. But I was considering this. Take. I have to take with a queen. And now knight f2. And eventually I discarded this because I'm getting my queen trapped, or I have to trade it. Of course, trading it is terrible because I'm down a piece. And the queen doesn't have any squares. So I go queen g2. He goes bishop f1, queen g3, rook h3. And yeah, I just ended my calculation here. Of course, these lines are super speculative. And, you know, they work once every, I don't know, 10 games. Maybe that's a bit pessimistic. But the point is, you know, these lines, this opening allows for such games, which I really enjoy. Queen a5. Here he made a mistake, in my opinion. He played castles, allowing a3. I'm not sure why he allowed this counterplay. Much more thematic in these positions, and this has occurred to me a couple of years ago, is white retreating the knight at this point to one of these squares, and proposing a queen exchange, which black in general is not happy to accept at all, because I lose all of my dynamic possibilities. So I was going for queen a7, and now I saw that he can go knight e3, and for example, after b5, knight c2, I believe white just has a great position. And yeah, I think white is clearly better at this point. And here I am striving for counterplay. I'm probably going knight e8 and then bishop f6. And if he doesn't want to trade, I'll try to reroute the bishop. But I think white is much better. Okay, he castles, allows a3. It plays in this weird manner, which the computer still says it's fine. But I think that in practical terms, it makes white's life much harder. Now queen b2 was the move that I was spending my time on. Queen b2. And after b5, rook b1, he gets this blockade on the b4 square. So again, it's not so easy for me to make progress. Computer still gives white a large advantage. Instead, he took with the knight. Yeah, he made a couple of weird decisions in this game. Probably because he was not too familiar with the structure or with the opening. Since he's mainly an e4 player. I go b5. Okay, normal enough. And he's not in time to go e3 or something at this point because I have knight b3 looming. And he goes rook c1. Okay, and now this is a blunder, and it allows a very nice shot for black. So black to play here, and I'm not gonna say win, but it's just a good, a healthy combination that results in a superior position for black. Okay, so b4, we start by attacking the knight, and then knight takes e4. So finally, my old idea works. I was thinking about this like for the whole game, and I was super pleased that it actually could work here. And I was, you know, when I saw that I could get to this position, I was pretty confident that it would be good, right? Because his king is completely in shambles, and my sleeping beauty here on h8 is going to wake up after e4, and I just have fantastic compensation. You know, material wise, it's not even compensation because I have 3 pawns for the piece. So queen d5. Also interesting moves were b3. I thought about this for a while because I'm looking to get in with the queen on e1. Eventually, I wasn't so sure about something. I believe like maybe rook c8 and knight f2. Yeah, I think I wasn't sure about this. Where the thing is that after ba3, he's coming in with knight e4, and all of a sudden has some mating ideas, right? I believe the computer wants e4 and then ba2, with the point that e4 liberated this diagonal. Now that I put this on the board, I'm still down a piece, so this is definitely not what the computer wanted. But there must be some other way. Interesting. Let me just take a quick look. No, ba2 loses. What he wants is something like queen b2. Yeah, that makes more sense. And after knight f6, king h8, still not taking. Okay, makes sense. And also e4 was another move, but I ended up taking. And here he didn't manage to put up a good defense. Queen d4. He played rook takes c8 with a faulty idea in mind, which ended the game. Not in his favor. Knight. I was still considering knight bc4. Kind of interesting. If d5, he has rook d1, and then he's taking the pawn. So instead, I was going for bishop e6. And now I'm always threatening like stuff like d5 at f6 to evict his pieces and to coordinate his pieces. And here I was considering after rook d1, I have this nice touch with queen f4. It's all concrete, right? I don't want to trade pieces in general, especially the queens, but it's all concrete. Here, after he trades, which he has to do, he has like a million pieces hanging. The bishop also woke up, and this is completely winning. This is completely winning. I was considering something even further during the game, but already I don't think I can remember. But it's not very relevant. The position is completely winning. Instead, he traded and went rook f1. I think he had some ideas of bishop c4, and maybe somewhere some ideas of sacking. Although probably bishop c4 is more realistic. But okay, I thought for a while. I still had 20-something minutes, which is should be more than sufficient to win this game. It's just important not to blunder something like rook c3 or rook c2 when I get hit with queen d8 mate. Never too late to lose the chess game. But I thought for a while, and f6 is just very clean and not very difficult. And the main point, which I don't know, he might have missed, is that after this, I take on e3, and in the end, I have queen f4. Not rook f8, though. This is what he might have seen, because here bishop c4 wins for him, but queen f4. Not sure this is the only move. I mean, honestly, probably not, but it's the best one, yeah. Okay, so I thought that he had to go bishop d1, which he did, and then rook c3 just finishes off the game. Again, I cannot take, which is kind of funny, because he comes in with this mate, or he gets the. I need to sack the queen. This is no good, but rook c3 is quite simple, and he resigned. So we finished on a high note, right? This game was quite nice. I believe I showed some imagination at least, and some sense of, evaluating the positions and whatnot. But yeah, overall the tournament was kind of disappointing. I mean, I knew what I was signing myself up for. I needed to basically win every game, even when playing above, in order to gain some yellow, or some prizes. But okay, we finished 4th. Could be worse. I started 5th. And yeah, my next tournament will probably be in by the end of this month in the region of Algarve in Portugal. And until then, I'll see you guys with more videos. Peace out.